Have you ever wondered if there are limits to religious freedom, especially when it comes to the laws of the land? It is a question that often comes up when we think about how our beliefs intersect with public life and the rights of others. Yes, religious freedom can indeed be restricted by law, but only under specific circumstances. While religious freedom is a fundamental right, it is not an absolute right. This means that, like many other freedoms, it can have boundaries when it conflicts with other compelling government interests or the rights and safety of others. The core mechanism behind these restrictions often comes down to what is called the compelling state interest test. This legal principle allows governments to restrict religious practices if there is a very good reason to do so, such as protecting public health, safety, or fundamental rights. However, the law must also be the least restrictive means possible to achieve that interest. This balancing act ensures that religious practices are only limited when absolutely necessary, and not just out of convenience or disagreement. Understanding this principle helps you discern when a religious practice might genuinely conflict with the law, or when someone is simply asserting an unlimited right. For example, while you are free to believe what you wish, a religious practice that involves illegal activity or directly harms others, like denying essential services to people based on their identity, would typically not be protected. Governments generally cannot target specific religions for restriction, but they can enforce neutral laws that happen to impact religious practices, as long as those laws apply equally to everyone. One key concept to remember here is the difference between belief and practice. The freedom to believe is almost always absolute and cannot be restricted by law. However, the freedom to practice those beliefs can sometimes be subject to reasonable limits. For instance, you might be free to believe in a certain dietary restriction, but you cannot demand that a public school system alter its entire meal program just for one student, especially if there are reasonable accommodations already in place. This distinction between belief and action is central to how courts approach these cases. So, while your right to believe as you choose is unwavering, the expression of those beliefs in practice sometimes needs to harmonize with the broader framework of civil rights and public good. Knowing this empowers you to understand your own rights and responsibilities, and to advocate for inclusive practices within communities that respect everyone's place in the world.
If this speaks to your spirit, like, subscribe, and keep growing in faith with us.